I'm Aaron Baker from PhoneDog.com, and it's part 2 of the dogfight battle between the HTC One Mini and the Samsung Galaxy S4 Mini, the miniature versions of the flagship smartphones. Which one's going to come out on top? Let's find out in part 2 of the dogfight battle. Starting off part 2 of the dogfight battle between the HTC One Mini and the Samsung Galaxy S4 Mini by telling you to watch part 1 because you missed out if you didn't watch it on a bunch of things that make these devices not just different from themselves, but different from their older brothers as well, the HTC One and the Samsung Galaxy S4. Now before we start into part 2, I'm going to give thanks to my boys at Best Buy Mobile, the boys in blue that I like to call them, because they hook us up with the latest devices for use in our One Pod Bandit giveaway game on the site. When you walk into Best Buy Mobile, regardless of whether it's AT&T, Sprint, Verizon, or T-Mobile, they'll make sure you walk out with what's best for you. It's called the unbiased approach. Best Buy incorporates it, and when you walk in there, you can walk out with unbiased advice and more. So we'll jump right in where we left off in part 1, and that is the keyboard area here. Now, a couple things to point out just spec for spec. 4.3-inch display on both of these devices. This one is 720p HD. This one is QHD. So just looking at a PPI count here, you're looking at, on the Galaxy S4 Mini, 256 PPI. Over on the HTC One Mini, you're looking at a pretty nice 341 PPI. So again, spec for spec here, you get less RAM on the One Mini, 1 gigabyte to 1.5 gigabytes. You get a smaller, or I should say, a clock speed that's slower on the processor, 1.4 gigahertz Snapdragon 400 CPU, 1.7 gigahertz, but you get that really nice HD display. And to me, when it comes to RAM, when it comes to processor, I'm all about it. I'm all about which one's faster. So even if this one's clocked slower, if it performs just as well as the Galaxy S4 Mini, I would say HTC One Mini. So far for me, this one performs admirably, performs just as good, if not better in a lot of situations, than the Galaxy S4 Mini, but we'll put the quadrant standard to the test a little bit later in part 2 of this dogfight battle. So we'll talk a little bit about the keyboards here and say the quick brown fox doesn't like beans in his chili because, like me and like where this office is, quick brown fox is a Texan, and we don't believe in putting beans in our chili. Just a PSA there. I know I'm going to get the comments, how do you not put beans in your chili? Actually, well, hopefully we'll keep the comments on the phones, but you know what? Let's talk about beans in the chili. I like talking about beans in the chili. Very easy to type on this. Love the Sense 5 keyboard. And if you want to change it, you can choose your input method from up top, but really appreciate this. And even at 4.3 inches, does not feel as cramped as the Galaxy S4 Mini does. And I know I kind of spoiled it there, but Brown Fox is happy and likes chili without beans. A lot of spelling errors there. Should be of note, I should say, predictive text here. I can auto replace words on the international version of Samsung's keyboard, cannot on the US version. There's no option to do so. But again, portrait to landscape here just to give you a comparison between the two. So from a content creation standpoint, from a media standpoint, you do get a lot over here with Samsung's ecosystem. You get Watch On, PhoneDog.com. You watch on, you get Samsung's application shortcut, you get a lot of different goodies. That said, really enjoy what the HTC One Mini brings to the table. I feel like it's less of a step down from the HTC One than this one is from the Galaxy S4. So again, depending on what you want, if you want the ecosystem, the S4 is just too big for you. S4 Mini will do a decent job. That said, I like this one better just because of the specifications it brings to the table with the HD display, with the overall look and feel, the fact that it preserves boom sound as well. So you get a lot of those kind of similar. I feel like I'm getting a less watered down experience than I am with the Galaxy S4 Mini. So again, loading up PhoneDog.com on both of these devices, and you can see typical HTC and Samsung respective looks and feels, I should say, when it comes to this. Open up your new tabs, nothing really unexpected in the browser by any means. And we'll go to PhoneDog, go back. And I just want to show you really quickly portrait to landscape mode. Again, very quick on both of those. So despite only having a Snapdragon 400 CPU, that processor performs pretty well, and I haven't had any real slowdowns on either one of these devices. So press and hold home to access Google Now. Over here, you still have your same configuration with back and home. No menu button down here, whereas you do get that over on the S4 Mini, much like the Galaxy S4. Menu, back, and then your home button down here, which is a physical home button. And so forgive me, like I said in part 1, I'm recovering from a cold, so I've got a little bit of a tickle in my throat. So I'm trying to fight the urge to cough right now and do quadrant standard. I'm not trying to fight the urge to do quadrant standard. That kind of came out after the cough comment. But let's go back here and do OK. We'll run the full benchmarks. Forgive me. And we'll talk about some of the speed tests and more. So loading quadrant standard now, and we'll see how both of these devices perform. Now battery-wise, very similar, 1,800 milliamp hour battery here, 1,900 milliamp hour battery in the S4 Mini. Hard to compare these really because neither one of these have 4G LTE connectivity. They're both unlocked devices, so not locked to any respective carrier, not packing 4G LTE, at least in the States. It's hard to make an accurate battery call. That said, I get about, and consider these are approximations, do not take this with any sort of relevance, take this with a grain of salt, but I get about 12 hours on the HTC One Mini, and I get about 12 to 13 hours over on the S4 Mini. So One Mini, S4 Mini, about the same when it comes to battery performance. Both HTC and Samsung have done a pretty decent job of maximizing standby time on both of these devices. Not just standby time, but device time as well. So I've been pretty pleased all across the board with these devices, despite the fact that they have smaller batteries. Could I make it through a day? Probably not. That's with moderate use. With heavy use, I use between the Galaxy S4 and the HTC One. Both of those struggle to make it through a full day with my use. I like them because they make it a little bit over, about, I'd say 15 to 16 hours, so they're right at that point where I can make it through a day and charge at night. These are not there just yet. So, for example, if you're carrying it on a business trip, you're going to run out of juice with these. You're probably not going to run out of juice with the One and the Galaxy S4 due to their larger batteries. So 6,374, 6,936. S4 Mini wins on the quadrant standard front, although, like I said, keep in mind, both perform incredibly fast all around. Last but not least, going to talk about the cameras here. 4 ultra pixel camera on the One Mini, 8 megapixel camera on the S4 Mini. And I'll just show you what they offer and what they don't offer in comparison to their older brothers. First of all, you cannot use the front-facing camera like you can on the Galaxy S4. You are restricted to just using the rear camera, and you do have some modes here: rich sound, sound and shot, best face, and more, though it should be pointed out that you don't get as many as you do on the Galaxy S4, but still. We'll go to, excuse me, auto here, for example. Take a quick picture of the HTC One. It's a decent camera. Compare this roughly to the Galaxy S3. Over here, 4 ultra pixel camera. Love this camera. On the camera department, the HTC One Mini wins. I'll bring over the Xperia Z, or Xperia Z, as the Canadians say. And you can see really a nice clean image all around here. Love this camera. Yeah, you don't get the optical image stabilization, but what you do get over here that really is a nice value add for a mini device, or a device that's kind of marked as a lower device than its cousin or than its brother, you do get the HTC Zoe capabilities over here as well. So for the smaller device, still get HTC Zoe, you still get the blink feed capabilities, so you're still getting more of a full experience as far as I'm concerned than you do on the S4 Mini side. So blink feed here, and then jumping right back into the gallery, I'll show you a Zoe that I took the other day. And here it is. And Zoe, in case you're wondering, is a combination of pictures and videos. The Zoe option allows you to take 3-second videos, combine that with your pictures. So if you're at a wedding, for example, if I happen to be at my wedding, it's coming up very soon, take a bunch of pictures. I'm not going to be taking them, obviously, but take a bunch of pictures, take a bunch of videos, bring them together into something like this, and you can change the style as well. Vega, for example, it'll reload. You're not doing anything, the device is doing this for you. So, rounding out the dogfight battle, the winner of the dogfight battle is the HTC One Mini. I feel like it offers a little bit of less of a step down, if you will, than the Galaxy S4 Mini does. And keep in mind, it depends on what's most important to you. The processor clock speed, faster here. More RAM over here, a little bit bigger battery over here. What you get over here, HD display, you get a performance that's really nice all around, considering the fact of how much lower it was clock speed wise. Both of these were very close in quadrant standard. The real win for me, metal build quality preserved over here. Still get the same 4 ultra pixel camera, and you get the abilities to do HTC Zoe on the cheaper version of the device. You missed out on Air View over here. I feel like this is less of a step down than the Galaxy S4 Mini. Keep it locked in the site for more. I'm on Twitter at PhoneDog_Aaron, Facebook, facebook.com/HiAaronBaker. Let me know what you think, and as always, I'll see you next time.